There are disappearances that begin with a stranger. Felecia Williams' disappearance began with someone she knew. She was 9 years old. The woman who picked her up was Ebony Wiley, a family friend Felecia trusted. Her mother trusted Wiley too. That afternoon, Felecia got into Wiley's car. She had no reason to be afraid. She stopped for food. She went to an apartment. And then Wiley made one decision that changed everything. She left Felecia alone with a man she had known for only days. His name was Granville Ashanti Ritchie. Roughly 50 minutes later, Wiley returned. Felecia was gone. Ritchie claimed the 9-year-old had gone to a nearby CVS to buy candy, but Felecia never returned. 2 days later, her body was found in the water near the Courtney Campbell Causeway. Now detectives had a very different question. What happened inside that apartment? And why were the people who knew where Felecia had been telling lies? This is the story of Felecia Nicole Williams. And this is Black Girl Lost. If stories like Felecia's deserve to be remembered, subscribe and turn on notifications. Because this case is not simply about a missing child. It is about trust, betrayal, and a decision that ended a little girl's life. Before the headlines, before the courtroom, and before Granville Ritchie became a death row inmate, there was Felecia. She was 9 years old. Her family called her Sugar Plum. She was a daughter, a friend, and a little girl with an entire future ahead of her. On May 16, 2014, she went looking for Ebony Wiley, a woman she knew well. Wiley was a friend of Felicia's family. According to her later testimony, she had taken Felecia to church, out to eat, and riding bicycles. Felecia trusted her. That trust is what made the afternoon possible. Wiley had also recently met Granville Ritchie. Ritchie was 35 years old and originally from Jamaica. Wiley had met him only days earlier after he pulled up beside her in a silver Lexus. Their relationship moved quickly. According to Wiley, Ritchie talked about money, success, and a better future. He sold me a dream, she later told jurors. On May 16th, that dream placed her, Felecia, and Ritchie in the same car. They stopped at Checkers. Ritchie bought Felecia a shrimp box and fries. It looked like an ordinary afternoon. Then they went to Ritchie's apartment at the Doral Oaks complex in Temple Terrace. That was where everything changed. Inside the apartment, the adults talked about Felicia's behavior. Then another issue came up. They wanted marijuana. Wiley knew someone who could provide it. She testified that she wanted to take Felecia with her. Ritchie told her to leave the girl with him. He would watch her. He would take care of her. Wiley believed him. She left. Felecia stayed behind, alive, with Ritchie. According to the prosecution's evidence, that was the last time Felecia was seen alive. Wiley was gone for roughly 50 minutes. When she returned, Felecia was nowhere to be found. Ritchie told her the girl had gone to CVS to buy candy. Wiley drove around looking for her. Nobody had seen Felecia. Then she returned to the apartment. Ritchie was shirtless, sweating, and pacing. His behavior was no longer that of a man calmly watching a child. Something was wrong, but Wiley still believed his story. She prayed in a bedroom. Ritchie gave her a glass of Hennessy. According to her testimony, they had sex. And while this was happening, Felecia was already dead. As the evening continued, Wiley and Ritchie discussed what they would tell Felicia's mother. They created a story. They claimed Felecia had wandered away while Wiley was taking a shower. It was a lie. Then Ritchie left the apartment. Felecia was still missing. Her family was waiting for her. And the people who knew where she had been were hiding the truth. Later that night, according to the prosecution, Ritchie returned to the apartment. Felicia's body was there. He placed her body inside a suitcase and loaded it into his vehicle. Then he drove toward the Courtney Campbell Causeway. He disposed of her body in the water before continuing to St. Petersburg, where another girlfriend lived. Back in Tampa, Felicia's mother was still searching for her daughter, but the explanation she had been given made no sense. A 9-year-old had supposedly walked alone to a store and disappeared. Police began asking questions. Who had Felecia last? Who left her? Who stayed behind? And why were the stories changing? Then, on May 18th, the search ended. Boaters near the Courtney Campbell Causeway spotted a child's body in the water. It was Felecia. The medical examination classified her death as a homicide. The missing child investigation became a murder investigation, and the lies suddenly mattered much more. Wiley had initially lied to police, but after Felicia's body was found, investigators confronted her again. The story about the shower could no longer survive. Eventually, Wiley changed her account. She admitted that Richie had been with Felecia. She admitted she had left the child alone with him. She admitted she and Richie had agreed to lie. But there was a problem. Wiley was not an innocent witness. She had lied. She had used drugs. She had protected Richie. And she had waited before telling police everything. That gave the defense something powerful to attack. Why should the jury believe her now? The prosecution had to prove that Wiley's final account was credible, and they had more than her testimony. Richie had also spoken to investigators. During the 2019 trial, jurors watched portions of his 2014 interrogation. His version of events was different. He maintained that he did not know where Felecia was. Now the jury had two competing stories: Wiley's testimony, Richie's explanation, and the evidence connecting them. Felecia was killed in 2014. Richie did not go to trial until 2019. 5 years passed. By the time the case reached court, Felecia would have been 14. Instead, her mother was sitting in a courtroom listening to strangers discuss the final hours of her daughter's life. The prosecution's argument was straightforward. Felecia was alive when she entered Richie's apartment. Wiley left her in his care. When Wiley returned, Felecia was dead, and Richie had the opportunity to kill her. The prosecution also presented evidence that Felecia had been sexually assaulted and strangled. The defense challenged the state's evidence and attacked Wiley's credibility. They pointed to her lies, her drug use, her changing stories, and her own responsibility for leaving Felecia with Richie. The defense wanted jurors to question whether Wiley had shifted blame to protect herself. Then Wiley took the stand. She told the jury how quickly her relationship with Richie had developed. She described the promises he made. Then she returned to the afternoon of May 16th, the Checkers meal, the apartment, the marijuana, the moment Richie convinced her to leave Felecia behind. Then she described coming back. Richie was sweating and pacing. Felecia was gone. He claimed she had gone for candy. And eventually, Wiley admitted they created the false story. The defense attacked her testimony, but the prosecution argued that important parts of her account matched the other evidence. The jury had to decide whether her lies destroyed her credibility or whether her eventual confession helped expose the truth. On September 25th, 2019, the case went to the jury. After roughly 4 hours of deliberation, they returned: guilty, first-degree murder, guilty, sexual battery, guilty, aggravated child abuse. Granville Richie had been convicted, but the most serious decision was still ahead. Should he live or should he die? During the penalty phase, prosecutors focused on Felecia, a 9-year-old child, a sexual assault, a violent killing, a body carried away and dumped in the water, a fabricated disappearance story. The defense asked jurors to consider Richie's life before the crime, including his childhood, traumatic experiences, and neurological problems. Then Felicia's mother took the stand. She spoke about losing her daughter. The courtroom became emotional. A juror began crying, and proceedings were briefly stopped. For Felicia's mother, this was not a case file. It was her child. The jury eventually returned with its recommendation: 12 votes for death, 0 for life. The recommendation was unanimous, but the final decision belonged to the judge. On September 11th, 2020, Circuit Judge Michelle Cisco sentenced Granville Richie to death. The trial was over, but the legal battle was not. Richie was sent to Florida's death row. His attorneys appealed his convictions and death sentence. In June 2022, the Florida Supreme Court affirmed the convictions and sentences. Richie then sought review from the United States Supreme Court. The petition Richie versus Florida was denied on March 6, 2023. His direct appeal had reached its end. But capital cases can continue through post-conviction proceedings. And regardless of what happened inside the courts, one fact remained unchanged: Felecia was gone. Ebony Wiley's role remains one of the most difficult parts of the case. She was not convicted of Felicia's murder. Richie was, but Wiley brought Felecia to him. She left the child alone with a man she had known for only days. She believed his explanation when Felecia disappeared. She helped create a false story. She lied to police. Then she changed her story and became a key prosecution witness. Legally, Wiley and Richie faced different circumstances, but her decision remains one of the most painful questions surrounding Felicia's death. What if she had taken Felecia with her? What if she had never left the child alone with Richie? What if she had called police the moment Felecia disappeared? We cannot change those decisions, and responsibility for Felicia's murder rests with the man convicted of killing her. But the case is also a reminder that children depend on adults to recognize danger for them. Felecia could not know what Richie was capable of. The adults around her had to make that judgment, and one terrible decision put her in the wrong place with the wrong person. More than a decade has passed since Felecia Williams disappeared. The courtroom records remain. The verdict remains. The death sentence remains. But time has a way of pushing old cases out of the headlines. That should not happen to Felecia, because she was more than a murder victim. She was 9 years old. Her family called her Sugar Plum. She had a mother who loved her. She had a future. She should have grown up. She should have had teenage birthdays, friendships, graduation, mistakes, dreams, and a life of her own. Instead, all of that ended on May 16th, 2014. 2 days later, her body was found near the Courtney Campbell Causeway. Years later, Granville Ritchie was convicted of killing her and sentenced to death. But no verdict can give Felecia back to her mother. No sentence can restore the years she lost. That is why her name matters. Felecia Nicole Williams, Sugar Plum, 9 years old, loved by her family, and remembered. If Felicia's story stayed with you, subscribe to Black Girl Lost, turn on notifications, and share this documentary. Because when the headlines disappear, somebody still has to remember the names. And we will. Rest peacefully, Felecia. You are remembered.